Princess Lyra stood alone on her tower balcony, watching the twin moons rise over Nethi's prime. The purple light made her pale blue skin look almost ghostly against the dark sky. She pressed her forehands against the cold crystal railing and sighed deeply. Below her, the capital city buzzed with activity. Flying vehicles moved like glowing insects between the tall spire buildings. The streets were full of Vorthan citizens going about their evening business. But up here, 60 floors above the ground, Lyra felt completely alone. "Another wonderful family dinner," she whispered to herself, her voice bitter. Just an hour ago, she had sat through yet another meal where her 3 older brothers talked about their military victories while her parents nodded with pride. When anyone looked at her, it was with disappointment or annoyance. She was the 4th child, the unwanted one, the mistake. The worst part was her gift or curse, depending on who you asked. Lyra could feel other people's emotions as clearly as her own. Right now, she could sense the happiness of a couple walking in the garden below. She could feel the excitement of children playing in a nearby courtyard. But she could also feel something else. The cold disgust her family felt whenever they looked at her. "Empaths are weak," her father, Emperor Vex, always said. A true Vorthan warrior feels nothing but strength and honor. But Lyra felt everything. Every harsh word, every disappointed glance, every moment when her family wished she had never been born. It was like carrying a heavy stone in her chest that grew heavier each day. The sound of heavy footsteps made her turn. Her oldest brother, Prince Drex, stepped onto the balcony. His dark green skin gleamed with health, and his 6 arms moved with the grace of a trained warrior. Everything about him screamed power and confidence. "Still hiding up here, sister?" Drex's voice carried the usual mockery. "Father was looking for you after dinner." "I'm sure he was," Lyra replied, not meeting his eyes. Through her empathic sense, she could feel his emotions, annoyance, superiority, and underneath it all, genuine dislike for her existence. "The council is meeting tomorrow about the human visitors," Drex continued. "Father thinks their technology might be useful, once we properly persuade them to share it." Lyra's stomach twisted. She had heard about the human ship that had requested permission to dock. The Aurora's Dream, they called it. A small diplomatic vessel with barely 20 crew members. Her people saw them as easy prey. "They came here seeking trade and friendship," Lyra said quietly. Drex laughed, a harsh sound that echoed off the crystal walls. "Friendship? With those soft pink creatures? They have 2 arms, sister. 2. How do they even fight? How do they build anything meaningful?" "Maybe they don't need to fight," Lyra suggested. The temperature around them seemed to drop. Drex moved closer, his bulk casting a shadow over her smaller frame. "That," he said slowly, "is exactly the kind of thinking that makes you unfit to be Vorthan royalty. We are conquerors. We are strong. We take what we need and crush what stands in our way. These humans will learn that soon enough." Through her empathic ability, Lyra felt the truth behind his words. The council didn't just want to trade with the humans. They wanted to study them, take their technology, and then decide whether to enslave them or destroy them entirely. "Leave me alone, Drex," she whispered. "Gladly." He turned to go, then paused. "Oh, and sister, Father wants you to attend the welcome ceremony tomorrow. Try not to embarrass the family more than usual." After he left, Lyra collapsed into a chair made from grown crystal. The furniture was beautiful but cold, like everything else in the palace. She closed her eyes and tried to push away the emotions flooding in from all around her. From the servants' quarters, she felt exhaustion and fear. From the guard posts, she sensed boredom and cruel anticipation. From her family's private chambers, she felt nothing but cold ambition and the constant planning of conquest. But there was something else. Something new. Far below, in the diplomatic quarters where the human visitors were staying, she sensed emotions she rarely encountered. Curiosity without malice. Hope mixed with caution. And something else. Something warm and gentle that she couldn't quite name. Lyra opened her eyes and looked toward the lower levels of the palace. Somewhere down there, the human captain and his crew were preparing for tomorrow's ceremony, not knowing it was likely their last night of freedom. "I'm sorry," she whispered to the night air, though she knew they couldn't hear her. The twin moons reached their peak, bathing the city in purple and silver light. In the distance, she could see the human ship docked at the Royal Landing Bay. It looked so small and fragile compared to the massive Vorthan warships surrounding it. Lyra had lived her entire 25 years feeling like an outsider in her own family, her own world. She had never met another being who understood loneliness the way she did. Tomorrow, she would watch her people begin the process of destroying these visitors, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. She was just the unwanted princess, after all, the weak empath in a family of warriors. The mistake that the royal family pretended didn't exist. But as she prepared to return to her chambers, Lyra felt that strange, warm emotion from the diplomatic quarters growing stronger. It felt like kindness, pure, simple kindness directed toward no one in particular, just existing like a gentle flame in the darkness. For the first time in years, Princess Lyra fell asleep without crying, wondering about the beings who could feel such things even when they were far from home and surrounded by potential enemies. The great hall buzzed with tension as servants rushed to prepare for the welcome ceremony. Lyra watched from behind a pillar, trying to stay invisible while the palace staff arranged tables and chairs. Everything had to be perfect for Emperor Vex's grand display of power. The humans would arrive soon, and Lyra could already feel her family's cruel excitement building like a storm. Her father planned to use his dinner to show the visitors exactly how small and helpless they were compared to the mighty Vorthan Empire. "Stay out of sight," her mother, Empress Kala, had told her that morning. "We don't need your weakness embarrassing us in front of the aliens." So Lyra hid in the shadows, as always, but her empathic abilities meant she couldn't truly escape. She felt every emotion in the room: the servants' fear, the guards' bloodthirsty anticipation, her brother's eager cruelty. The massive doors opened with a deep rumble. Captain Marcus Kane entered first, followed by a small crew. Lyra held her breath as she got her first real look at humans. They looked so fragile. Captain Kane was tall by human standards, but seemed tiny next to the towering Vorthan guards. His skin was a warm brown color, and his dark hair was cut short and neat. He wore a simple blue uniform with strange symbols on it. What struck Lyra most was how calm he appeared. Through her empathic sense, she could feel his emotions clearly. He was nervous, yes, but not afraid. Underneath the nervousness was something steady and strong, like a deep river flowing beneath ice. "Welcome, humans." Emperor Vex boomed from his crystal throne. His voice echoed off the walls, designed to intimidate. "I am Emperor Vex, ruler of 17 star systems, and commander of the greatest fleet in this galaxy." Captain Kane bowed politely. "Your Majesty, I am Captain Marcus Kane, the Earth ship Aurora's Dream. We thank you for allowing us to visit your beautiful world." Lyra felt surprise ripple through her. The captain's emotions remained steady despite her father's obvious attempt to scare him. Even more surprising, she sensed genuine appreciation when he called their world beautiful. He wasn't lying or trying to flatter them. He really meant it. "Sit," the Emperor commanded, gesturing to a small table placed deliberately far from the royal table. "Let us see what these humans are truly made of." The dinner began, and Lyra watched in growing horror as her family treated their guests exactly as she'd expected. Prince Drex made loud jokes about human weakness. Prince Rex suggested humans might be useful as servants. Her youngest brother, Prince Nyx, laughed at everything the others said. But Captain Kane never lost his composure. When Prince Drex asked mockingly how humans could possibly build spaceships with only 2 arms, Kane smiled and explained how cooperation and tool-making allowed humans to overcome their physical limitations. "We may not be as strong as Vorthans individually," Kane said calmly, "but together we can accomplish amazing things." Through her empathic sense, Lyra felt something she had never experienced before. The captain wasn't just being polite. He genuinely believed what he was saying. He felt proud of his species, but not in an arrogant way. It was a warm, inclusive pride that somehow made room for others to be proud too. "Cooperation," Emperor Vex spat. "Weakness disguised as virtue." "Perhaps," Kane replied gently, "but it has served us well." As the evening continued, Lyra found herself drawn deeper into the captain's emotional presence. Where her family radiated cold ambition and casual cruelty, he projected something entirely different: kindness, curiosity, and a deep sadness that reminded her of her own loneliness. Then disaster struck. While trying to get a better view, Lyra shifted position behind her pillar. Her movement caught Captain Kane's attention, and suddenly their eyes met across the vast hall. Lyra froze, expecting the usual reaction: disgust at her pale, weak appearance, fear of her strange empathic abilities, dismissal of her as unimportant. Instead, Captain Kane's emotions shifted to something Lyra had never felt directed at her before: genuine interest and what could only be described as gentle concern. He didn't look away in disgust or ignore her existence. He looked at her like she was a person worth knowing. The moment lasted only seconds before Lyra ducked back behind the pillar, her heart racing. But the damage was done. For the first time in her life, someone had looked at her with kindness instead of disappointment. The ceremony ended with Emperor Vex's traditional speech about Vorthan's superiority. The humans were escorted to their guest quarters in the lower levels of the palace. As the hall emptied, Lyra remained hidden, replaying that moment of eye contact over and over. Later that night, unable to sleep, she walked through the palace gardens. The twin moons cast everything in silver light, and the night-blooming flowers filled the air with sweet perfume. She often came here when family dinners became too painful to bear. She was sitting by a fountain, lost in thought, when she heard footsteps on the stone path. To her amazement, Captain Kane appeared around a bend, looking confused and slightly lost. "Oh," he said, stopping when he saw her. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to intrude. I was trying to find my way back to my quarters, but I'm afraid I took a wrong turn somewhere." Lyra should have called the guards or run away. Instead, she found herself speaking. "The guest quarters are that way," she said softly, pointing toward the eastern wing. "Follow the blue lights in the path stones." Kane smiled, and again Lyra felt that warm wave of genuine gratitude. "Thank you. You're very kind." "I am Princess Lyra," she said, then immediately regretted it. Now, he would know she was the family embarrassment. But Kane's reaction surprised her again. He bowed respectfully, not mockingly. "Your Highness, I'm honored to meet you. I'm Captain Marcus Kane." Through her empathic abilities, Lyra sensed no deception, no hidden mockery. He truly seemed pleased to meet her. "I saw you at dinner," Kane continued gently. "You have very expressive eyes. I got the impression you might understand loneliness." The words hit Lyra like a physical blow. How could the stranger see so clearly what her own family refused to acknowledge? I should go," she whispered, starting to turn away. "Wait," Kane said softly. "I don't know much about Vorthan customs, but where I come from, we believe that people who understand loneliness should stick together." Lyra turned back, studying his face in the moonlight. His emotions were completely open to her empathic sense. No hidden agenda, no cruel intentions, just honest loneliness and a hope for connection. "You are far from your home," she said. "Yes," Kane admitted. "My ship is my home now. My family, they're gone." The pain in his emotions made Lyra's chest ache with sympathy. Here was someone who truly understood loss. "Mine might as well be gone," she said quietly. "They wish I had never been born." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, two lonely souls recognizing each other across the vastness of space and species. "Would you like to hear about Earth?" Kane asked gently. About places where being different is considered valuable instead of shameful? For the first time in her life, Princess Lyra said yes to hope. Part 3. The Growing Bond. 3 weeks passed like a dream for Lyra. Every night, she met Captain Kane in the old east wing of the palace, a section that had been abandoned for years after a crystal growth experiment went wrong. The walls still glowed with soft blue light, but no one ever came there anymore. It was perfect for secret meetings. "Tell me about rain again," Lyra said, sitting cross-legged on an old stone bench. Kane sat nearby, his eyes bright with memory. "It falls from the sky like tiny drops of silver," he said, using his hands to show how raindrops moved. "When it hits the ground, it makes this gentle pattering sound. And the smell afterward, We call it petrichor. It's clean and fresh and full life. Lyra tried to imagine it. On Nethys Prime, water came from underground springs and was carefully controlled by the government. The idea of water falling freely from the sky seemed magical. Your people must be very happy, she said. Kane's expression grew sad. We have our problems too. Wars, hunger, people who hate others for being different. But we also have hope. We believe things can get better. That was something else Lyra couldn't quite understand. Hope. In Vorthan society, you accepted your place and never expected things to change. But Kane talked about humans who had fought for freedom, who had explored space not for conquest but for discovery, who had learned to work together despite their differences. Earth sounds wonderful, Lyra said softly. It is, but this place has beauty too. Kane gestured to the glowing walls around them. These crystals are alive, aren't they? I can feel them humming. Lyra nodded, surprised he had noticed. They respond to emotions. Happy thoughts make them brighter. Sad thoughts dim them. Most Vorthans learn to block their feelings, so the crystals won't betray them. But not you. I can't. I feel everything. She touched one of the wall crystals, and it pulsed with warm golden light. My family says it makes me weak. Kane leaned forward, his voice gentle but firm. It doesn't make you weak, Lyra. It makes you extraordinary. Do you know what I felt during that dinner ceremony? Your father's anger, your brother's cruelty. It was like standing in a freezing storm. But from you, even hidden behind that pillar, I felt warmth, compassion. You were the only kind person in that entire room. The crystals around them blazed brighter as Lyra's emotion soared. No one had ever called her extraordinary before. How do you do that? She asked. Do what? Make me feel valuable. Kane smiled. Because you are valuable. You have a gift that could bring peace between worlds. You understand what others are feeling. That's the first step toward real communication. Over the following nights, their conversations grew deeper. Kane told her about human music, and she hummed Vorthan harmony songs that made the crystals dance with color. He explained human books, stories about ordinary people doing extraordinary things. She shared ancient Vorthan poetry that spoke of a time when her people valued wisdom over warfare. We weren't always like this, Lyra explained one night, showing him a crystal tablet with old writings. Thousands of years ago, Vorthans were explorers and artists. We grew these crystal cities and sang to make them beautiful. But then came the Great War with the Zephyrians, and everything changed. We became soldiers first, people second. Kane studied the ancient text, even though he couldn't read it. What happened to the Zephyrians? We destroyed them completely. Their entire species gone. Lyra's voice was barely a whisper. My people celebrated as our greatest victory. The crystals dimmed as her sadness spread through them. Kane reached out and gently touched her hand, her first physical contact with another being that wasn't meant to hurt or control. I'm sorry, he said, and through her empathic sense, she knew he truly meant it. He felt genuine sorrow for people he had never met, from a species that had been dead for millennia. You would have tried to save them, wouldn't you? Lyra asked. If I could have, every species lost is a tragedy. Every person who dies is someone who could have contributed something beautiful to the universe. That night marked a turning point. Lyra began to see her own people through Kane's eyes, not as strong conquerors, but as frightened survivors who had lost their way. And more importantly, she began to see herself not as a failed Vorthan, but as something new entirely. The trade negotiations, meanwhile, were going badly. Each day, Lyra watched her father and the council make increasingly unreasonable demands. They wanted human technology, but offered nothing valuable in return. They spoke of humans as if they were bargaining for livestock, not dealing with fellow intelligent beings. Kane never lost his patience, but Lyra could feel his growing concern for his crew. The other humans were getting nervous. They had expected difficult negotiations, but not outright hostility. How long before your people declare war on mine? Lyra asked one night. Kane shook his head. Humans don't declare war lightly. We'll try everything else first. Negotiation, compromise, even retreat if necessary. War is always the last option. Even when facing a stronger enemy? Especially then. We learned long ago that violence usually creates more problems than it solves. It was during their 4th week of meetings that everything changed. Lyra arrived at their usual spot to find Kane pacing, his emotions churning with worry and anger. "What's wrong?" she asked. "Your brother Drex cornered one of my crew members today. Lieutenant Anna was just walking to gardens, and he threatened her, said humans would make good slaves because we're small and weak." Lyra felt sick. Through her empathic connection with Kane, she could sense a protective fury and helpless frustration. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "It's not your fault." Kane stopped pacing and looked at her directly. "But Lyra, I need to ask you something important. Do you know what your father's real plans are?" The question hung in the air between them. Lyra knew the answer, had felt it in her family's emotions for weeks now, but saying it out loud would make it real. "They mean to capture your ship," she said finally. "Study your technology. Keep your crew as prisoners or slaves." Kane nodded grimly. "That's what I thought. My people don't know yet, but I can see the signs." "You have to leave," Lyra said urgently. "Take your crew and go tonight before it's too late." "I can't. If I run now, it will mean war between our species. Earth will think the Vorthans attacked us unprovoked. Millions could die." Lyra stared at him in amazement, even facing capture and possible death. Kane was thinking about preventing a larger conflict. "There has to be another way," she said. Kane looked at her for a long moment, and she felt something new in his emotions, hope mixed with desperate determination. "Maybe there is," he said quietly, "but I would need help from someone who understands both sides. Someone who could reach people's hearts instead of just their minds." As understanding dawned, the crystals around them began to glow with the brightest light Lyra had ever created. For the first time in her life, someone needed her not despite her empathic abilities, but because of them. "What do you need me to do?" she asked. Kane smiled, and in that smile was something Lyra had never expected to see directed at her, complete trust and something deeper that made her heart race. "Help me show your people what they could become instead of what they are." Lyra should have known that Prince Drex was watching her. She arrived at their secret meeting place to find it empty. The crystals in the abandoned wing flickered nervously, responding to her growing panic. Kane was supposed to be here by now. They had planned to discuss how to warn his crew about the upcoming trap. Looking for someone's sister? Lyra spun around to see Drex emerging from the shadows, flanked by 6 royal guards. His dark eyes gleamed with cruel satisfaction, and through her empathic abilities, she felt his twisted joy at finally catching her in something he could use against her. "I don't know what you mean," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. Drex laughed, the sound echoing off the crystal walls. "Oh, but I think you do. For weeks of secret meetings with a human captain? Very touching, really. Our weak little princess falling in love with an alien." The words hit Lyra like a physical blow. Love. Was that what she felt for Kane? The warm sensation in her chest when he smiled, the way her heart raced when he looked at her with those kind eyes, the desperate need to protect him from her family's cruelty? "Where is he?" she demanded. "Safe in the dungeons, for now. Father is having a most interesting conversation with him about Earth's defenses and the location of other human worlds." Lyra's blood went cold. Emperor Vex's conversations were legendary for their creativity and cruelty. Kane would be tortured for information, and when he had nothing left to give, he would be killed. "Please," she whispered. "He's just a diplomat. He doesn't know military secrets." "Oh, I'm sure he knows more than he realizes. Humans are so naive. They probably told him all sorts of useful information without thinking about it." Drex stepped closer, towering over her smaller frame. "But don't worry, sister. You'll be joining him soon. Father is most displeased to learn that his daughter is a traitor." The guards moved forward to take her, but something inside Lyra snapped. All those years of abuse, of being called weak, of being treated like a mistake. It all came rushing out in a wave of pure fury that made the crystals around them blaze like tiny suns. "I am not weak," she said, her voice carrying a power she had never known she possessed. The crystals responded to her emotion, their light growing so bright that the guards had to shield their eyes. Lyra felt every living being in the palace through her empathic connection. Guards, servants, nobles, prisoners. She could sense Kane in the dungeons below, his pain and determination blazing like a beacon in the darkness. Enough! Drex roared, lunging forward to grab her. But Lyra was already moving. Years of being ignored had taught her every secret passage and hidden corridor in the palace. She slipped through a crack in the crystal wall that only someone her size could fit through, leaving Drex and his guards behind. The palace dungeons were 5 levels down and heavily guarded, but Lyra knew paths that even the guards had forgotten. She made her way through maintenance tunnels and servant corridors, following Kane's emotional signature like a map. She found him chained to a wall in the deepest cell. His face was bruised and cut, but his eyes still held that gentle strength that had first drawn her to him. When he saw her, relief and concern warred in his expression. "Lyra, what are you doing here? It's too dangerous." "I'm getting you out," she said, working at his chains with a crystal tool she had stolen from a maintenance room. "My crew. I know where they are. We'll free them too." The chains clicked open, and Kane rubbed his wrist where the metal had cut into his skin. "There are too many guard between here and the landing bay," Kane said as they moved through the dungeon corridors. "Even if we reach the ship, they'll just shoot us down before we can escape." Lyra stopped walking. Not if they're too confused to think straight. She explained her plan as they freed Kane's crew from their cells. The other humans looked at her with a mixture of gratitude and amazement. Their captain had told them about the alien princess who had shown him kindness, but seeing her risk everything to save them was something else entirely. "Are you sure about this?" Lieutenant Anna asked. "What you're describing could kill you." Lyra nodded. "It might, but Kane taught me something. Sometimes you have to risk everything to do what's right." They made their way toward the landing bay, using service corridors and Lyra's empathic abilities to avoid guard patrols. But as they reached the final passage, alarms began blaring throughout the palace. Prince Drex had discovered their escape. "There." Kane pointed to their ship in the distance. "If we can reach it." "You won't," came a booming voice. Emperor Vex stood at the entrance to the landing bay, flanked by 50 royal guards and Prince Drex. "Surrender now, and I might let some of you live as slaves." Through her empathic sense, Lyra felt her father's rage and disappointment. But underneath it, she sensed something else. Fear. He was afraid of what her connection with Kane represented. Afraid of change. Afraid of losing the brutal system that kept him in power. "I'm sorry, Father," she said, stepping forward. "But I won't let you hurt them. You betrayed your own species to these aliens." Vex snarled. "You are no daughter of mine." The word should have hurt, but Lyra felt only sadness for the man who had chosen hatred over love, conquest over understanding. "You're right," she said quietly. "I'm not your daughter anymore. I choose to be something better." She closed her eyes and reached out with her empathic abilities, not just to sense emotions, but to project them. The palace's crystal network had been built by ancient Vorthans who understood the power of shared feeling. If she could channel her emotions through every crystal in the building, Lyra opened her heart completely, letting every feeling she had experienced with Kane flow out of her. The love, the hope, the sense of belonging, the joy of being accepted for who she truly was. She projected the warmth of human compassion, the strength that came from lifting others up instead of tearing them down, the beauty of connection across the vast emptiness of space. The crystals responded like they never had before. Light blazed through the palace walls, carrying Lyra's emotions to every person inside. Guards stopped mid-charge as they suddenly felt what it was like to be truly loved. Nobles gasped as waves of genuine kindness washed over them. Servants wept as they experienced hope for the first time in their lives. Even Emperor Vex staggered, his face twisted with confusion as alien emotions, human emotions, flooded through him. Lyra felt her strength leaving her. The psychic backlash was enormous, like trying to hold back an ocean with her bare hands. But she held on long enough for Kane and his crew to reach their ship. "Lyra." Kane caught her as she collapsed, her skin pale and cold. "Go," she whispered. "Take them home. Show them that not all Vorthans are monsters." "I'm not leaving without you," Kane said firmly. Through fading consciousness, Lyra felt something she had never experienced before. Someone choosing her over their own safety. Someone willing to risk everything, because they couldn't bear to lose her. Together, she managed to whisper as Kane carried her aboard the ship. The Aurora's dream lifted off as the palace guards slowly recovered from the emotional storm. But many of them made no move to stop the escaping ship. For the first time in their lives, they had felt what peace could be like. As they jumped to hyperspace, Lyra's last conscious thought was that maybe, just maybe, her sacrifice had planted seeds of change that would grow long after she was gone. Part 5. A New Beginning Among the Stars. Lyra woke to the gentle hum of human technology and the soft sound of rain. For a moment, she thought she was dreaming. Rain didn't exist on Vortin's ships, and the air around her felt different, warmer, somehow, and full of emotions she didn't recognize. Then she opened her eyes and saw Kane sitting beside her bed, his face brightening with relief and joy. "You're awake," he said softly. "I was starting to worry." Lyra tried to sit up and winced as pain shot through her head. Her empathic abilities felt different, dimmer than before, but also more focused somehow. "Where are we?" she asked. New Geneva Station, a human diplomatic outpost near the neutral zone. "You've been unconscious for 3 months, Lyra. We weren't sure if you would ever wake up." 3 months. Lyra looked around the medical room, taking in the soft lighting and the gentle curves of human architecture. Everything was designed for comfort rather than intimidation. Through a window, she could see the stars and the curve of a blue-green planet below. "My abilities are still there," Kane assured her quickly. "Dr. Mills says the psychic backlash damaged some of your neural pathways, but you're healing. You just can't reach as far as before." Lyra nodded slowly. She could still feel Kane's emotions clearly. Love, relief, hope, and underneath it all, a deep sadness that she didn't understand. "What's wrong?" she asked. Kane's expression grew troubled. "A lot has happened since we escaped. The Vorthan Empire, it's changing, but not in the way we hoped." Over the next few days, as Lyra recovered her strength, Kane explained what had occurred after their escape. Her emotional broadcast through the palace crystals had affected thousands of Vorthans, giving them their first taste of genuine compassion and hope. Many of them had been horrified by what they felt, not because the emotions were wrong, but because they realized how empty their own lives had been. A resistance movement had formed, calling themselves the Heart of Vorth. They used Lyra's image as their symbol and demanded an end to the Empire's cruel expansion. But Emperor Vex had responded with brutal force, crushing the rebellion and executing anyone caught with resistance materials. "They're calling you the Lost Princess," Kane said sadly. "Some believe you died saving humanity. Others think you betrayed your own species and deserve to die." Lyra felt the weight of that knowledge settle on her shoulders. Her attempt to bring understanding had instead brought civil war to her people. "I made things worse," she whispered. "No," Kane said firmly. "You planted seeds of hope in a barren field. Change is never easy, and it's never without cost. But the alternative was watching your people destroy mine, and then move on to destroy others." A soft chime indicated someone at the door. Lieutenant Anna entered, followed by a woman in diplomatic robes that Lyra didn't recognize. "Princess Lyra," the woman said with a respectful bow. "I am Ambassador Chen of the Earth Diplomatic Corps. Captain Kane has told me much about you." Over the following weeks, Lyra learned about the human response to the Vorthan crisis. Rather than preparing for war, Earth had sent medical aid to Vorthan worlds affected by the civil unrest. They had offered asylum to Vorthan refugees and established neutral zones where both species could meet safely. "We don't want to conquer the Vorthan Empire," Ambassador Chen explained. "We want to help it heal." The approach was so perfectly human that Lyra almost smiled despite everything. Even facing a hostile alien empire, humanity's first instinct was to help rather than hurt. "What happens now?" Lyra asked during one of her daily walks with Kane through the station's garden levels. Kane was quiet for a long moment, watching human children play among flowers that had been brought from Earth. "That's up to you. You have choices now that you never had before, such as Earth has offered you full citizenship and a position with the diplomatic corps. Your unique abilities and understanding of Vorthan culture could help prevent future conflicts. Kane paused by a fountain where water fell in gentle drops, like the rain he described to her so long ago. Or you could return to Vorthen space. There are rumors that some of the outer colonies are ready to break away from the Empire and form their own government. They would welcome you as a leader. Lyra dipped her fingers in the fountain, marveling at how the water felt exactly as Kane had described it. What would you do? I would choose the path that lets me help the most people, Kane said. But I would also choose the path that doesn't separate me from the person I love. The words hung in the air between them. Love. There was again, spoken openly this time. And if those two paths were different? Lyra asked. Kane took her hand gently. Then I would have to make the hardest decision of my life. That night, Lyra stood in the station's observation deck, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, her people were fighting a civil war sparked by her actions. Somewhere else, human worlds were preparing defenses against an empire that might never attack them now. The universe was vast and complicated, full of choices that seemed impossible to make. She felt Kane's presence before she heard his footsteps. He joined her at the window, and together they watched a transport ship dock with the station. More Vorthen refugees seeking asylum from the violence consuming their worlds. I know what I want to do, Lyra said finally. Kane waited without speaking, giving her the space to find her own words. I want to build something new. Not human, not Vorthen, but something that combines the best of both. She turned to look at him. A place where beings from different worlds can meet and learn from each other, where empathy is valued over strength, and where understanding matters more than conquest. Kane smiled, and Lyra felt his emotions flood through her, pride, love, and excitement at the possibilities her words suggested. That sounds like a job for two people, he said. One who understands the heart, and one who understands the mind. Are you sure? It won't be easy. We'll face opposition from both our species. Kane laughed, the sound full of the hope and determination that had first drawn Lyra to him. When has anything worthwhile ever been easy? 6 months later, the first Harmony station opened in the neutral zone between human and Vorthen space. It was small, just a few hundred people from a dozen different species. But it worked. Humans taught aliens about cooperation and compassion. Aliens taught humans about technologies and perspectives they had never imagined. Lyra and Kane stood together on the station's central deck, watching as a group of young Vorthens played with human children, their natural empathic abilities helping them understand each other despite language barriers. Do you think it will spread? Kane asked. Lyra smiled, feeling the warm emotions of friendship and hope radiating from every corner of their little station. In the distance, she could see more ships approaching. Refugees, diplomats, traders, and explorers from across the galaxy, all drawn by rumors of a place where differences were celebrated instead of feared. I think, she said, taking Kane's hand in all four of hers, that love has a way of spreading faster than anyone expects. As if in response to her words, the station's walls, grown from modified Vorthen crystals, pulsed with gentle light, reflecting the emotions of every being aboard. It was the beginning of something new, something neither species could have created alone. The lonely, unwanted princess had found her purpose at last, and the human who had shown her kindness had found something even more precious, a partner in building a better universe, one connection at a time.